Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice podcast, your inside connection to outdoor legislation. From the Beltway to policy happening your way, we're covering it all. I'm your host, Fred Bird. Join us as we explore public land access, wildlife and fisheries management, Second Amendment rights, the triumphs that shape our nation, the sports we all love, and the stories that fuel our passion for the great outdoors. This is the Sportsman's Voice podcast. We are here in Concord, New Hampshire, my home state that the audience always hears me boast about, the greatest state in the country, because I'm completely biased. But I'm here with our Governor Sportsman's Caucus chair, the one and only Governor Sununu. Sir, thanks for having me in the corner office. I appreciate it.
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think of the corner office?
It's awesome.
What you expected?
Well, truthfully, I've seen lots of pictures of it through mutual friends, so I'm not completely surprised. But no, it's a great place to be, and I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, you bet. No, this is great. I do. This is a working office. You know, some governors have like ceremonial offices and then a working office and all this. We're pretty frugal in New Hampshire. We don't want to waste money, so
no,
the office is the office.
No, that's how we like it. I mean, and certainly we'll acknowledge out the gate that can we call it senioritis? It feels like that, right? Kind of on the way out.
Yeah, I get a little bit of senioritis, I guess. But you know, I've done my 4 terms, which for your listeners, where I'm one of the only governors in the country that has to get elected every 2 years. So it's been 8 years, and I chose not to run again because, you know, again, it's career. It's I don't believe in career politicians, right? It's public service, not public career, so to say. So you got to kind of stick to that. I think we've done a great job, and we've, you know, there's always more work to do, to be sure. But yeah, a few more months to go, but it's still a 24/7 job.
Right.
Like, I wish I could tell you, yeah, I'm just kind of taking a break. Now, it's funny, this morning, we're getting off to a late start this morning because of all Friday mornings, while I was supposed to be here at the office, my wife asked me to do some weeding and mulching over at the Bridges house. We don't have a governor's mansion or anything here. But so I came in very late because what was a 2-hour endeavor turned into a 5-hour endeavor. And I'm sure Fred is smelling me, you know, like I've been in the garden for 4 hours, which I am, smelling like compost.
It's awesome. So, and I kicked the segment of the show off with this acknowledgement because, you know, we're gonna miss you. I'm gonna miss you. You know, I appreciate and understand where your philosophies align and what everything that comes with that. But you know, without being cliche here, the governor's been a man of the people for our state and a great example here in the Northeast, the New England region, and working with our other Sportsman Caucus governors and the governors in the region. And, you know, like I say, you're just going to be missed. You're very down to earth.
I will miss the job. That's for sure. Yeah. I love the job. It's really, as we say in New Hampshire, it's wicked hot.
Yeah.
It is wicked hot, but it's incredibly fulfilling. I think we've done a pretty darn good job. The state's in great shape. And, you know, when we're talking about issues of, you know, hunters and anglers and all the different aspects of conservation that come with fish and game and being a sportsman and, you know, what that support and balance means and everything, you know, I kind of treat these issues the same as I treat any issues, which is, okay, let's talk to the stakeholders. Let's get the bureaucrats out of the way. Okay, I know what they're probably going to say. Mm-hmm. Let's go talk to the folks that are actually handling the services that we're trying to provide, the opportunities we're trying to provide. Do we do it right? Do we not do it? Are we stocking the lakes appropriately? Are the seasons matching, you know, what the need is and where the demand is? Actually, I think that's an area where we can keep tweaking it a little bit. I think some folks are going to explore that a little bit. Does it? Are we balancing what we do with hunters and sportsmen with OHRV, snowmobiling, all the other aspects of outdoor recreation, ensuring that everyone has an opportunity, but yet everything is safe, you know, and all that. So, but we have great folks at the state. Don't get me wrong. But when you want to start addressing these issues, you always start with the folks on the front line, right? And I remember when I first met you, I think I met you when we were going to go turkey hunt, right?
Yeah, well, before then, I put you on the spot.
Yeah, but it was great because it was like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about, right? Not because he's an advocate or a lobbyist in Concord, because he's out there doing it, and he's with all the other sportsmen that are out there, and so. You know, what do you do when you're out, you know, sitting in a tree blind? You talk about what's wrong with politics and what's wrong with the state and what you'd like to see. So if there's any world that is going to have a good discussion and appreciation for what needs to be changed, it's this one.
Yeah, and so the way you approached the job over 8 years here in our state and to walk around in the Northeast and not hear your neighbors on either side of an aisle have any sort of real complaints or controversy is an achievement in and of itself. But taking that way about you and bringing that to the sporting community and the conservation community is huge, because there are very extreme, polarly opposing sides, and there's a whole group in the middle that are either indifferent or could care less. They just like to go outside and enjoy our natural resources, not having a full understanding of the sporting community's role in that, and how a lot of that is built on the back of a few for the good of the many through our conservation funding system. But you've always just had a very good way about you and just engaging and not feeding into the emotions and a lot of the hyperbole, and yielding to the science and yielding to the professionals we have that our executives hire based on their resumes and their experience. And we assume that, okay, these folks are the professionals. Let's have a listen to that.
Yeah.
See what they have to say.
You bring up a really good point. In New Hampshire, I'm going to rough this out. About 1 out of every 7 people have a hunting or fishing license, something like that. About 1 out of every 7 people are probably really extreme and think they should ban all guns, hunting, fishing, go 100% on just, let it all grow and be natural without any appreciation, understanding of what conservation and management really is. The kind of, I'll say, the extreme on the other side. And then 5 out of 7 people are like, yeah, cool, but they don't necessarily partake in it, but they're not against it or anything like that. So you always have to appreciate that the issues that we can dive into, that you dive into every single day, most people might not, right? When you're on the inside of the bubble, as I like to say. So whenever we're looking at a law, a fee, or whatever, a rule or regulation or a change to the process, whatever it is, you always want to reach out to the folks that are going to be affected the most. You want to listen to everybody, understanding that there's going to be an extreme view there. But just because folks don't have a hunting or fishing license, you still want to listen to them too, right? What do they take on it? Because, for example, I engage with folks in New Hampshire. If it's not posted, you can hunt on it, right?
Which is a unicorn and becoming even more so.
Exactly, and I didn't realize that. I didn't know how rare that is becoming. So what do? I go out and talk to these landowners, and they're like, yeah, that's fine. For the most part, some folks will tell you, oh, that's unbelievable that people can just walk on the private land. But most people just don't care. It's fine. We take our privacy very seriously here, right? But we also appreciate the outdoors, that culture. Even if you're not partaking in it, there is a huge appreciation for it throughout, the 1.5 million people here.
It is special, and the audience has heard me reference this colonial land sharing tradition that goes all the way back beyond our founding, but to our founding as well. And for me, it's a dirty word, leasing. It's slowly creeping into our open spaces, and it's hard to tell a landowner with big tracts of land that they can't do a little side hustle.
Right,
you're leasing that out when then it. Obviously we have different laws here in New Hampshire as it pertains to land use and tax breaks and incurrent use laws. So there is some protection there. But yeah, no, it's really special, and I'm grateful we have it and continue to champion that and promoting that, because it's not just the hunters and anglers. You referenced OHRV, and we have some great miles of use that goes through a lot of private land.
That's right.
If not for those private landowners, folks on their ATVs, UTVs, and snowmobiles got really nowhere to go.
That's right. And we had it's not a huge issue, but a small issue flare up in Caucus. That's our northernmost county here. Just a few weeks ago, typically OHRV, the season, so to say, the trail usage closes, I believe, on October 1st. And because we had a lot of floods this year, we had a lot of trails wash out. There was an idea of, what, let's just extend it a couple more weeks. The OHRV season into Columbus Day weekend, which on its face says, oh, great, what's the big deal? Well, because now you're actually conflicting with some of the hunters out there, and you want to make sure that folks are safe. The OHRVs can scare the game and all that sort of thing. So you got to listen to all the sides. At the end of the day, we decided not to move anything, right? We didn't want to start setting a precedent. And I said, I think it's a real discussion to be had about when the season should start, where the revenues are, how to mix and make sure that both those opportunities, are exploited, for the sake of those that want to partake in them. But I don't think we've changed that October 1st date in decades. And so I said, look, just go back to the legislature. Doesn't mean we have to pass a law, but at least have a public discussion on it. I shouldn't be doing this behind closed doors arbitrarily. Make sure everyone has some input and discussion. The towns have a big say on it, because you know, OHRV and hunters bring good revenue to those towns, but in different ways.
Right.
And there's safety issues because OHRVs will run on the road concurrent with the road usage in most of those towns. So again, my point there is not to get overly engrossed in the details. There are a lot of details, and the best way to hash all that out is in a public forum, right?
Sure.
In a very transparent way, open and public. And we do have 400 members in our legislature. For those of your listeners outside of New Hampshire, it's incredible.
It is.
It's the only one state like it. It's the largest parliamentary body in the free world, next to British Parliament and U.S. Congress, right? And then there's New Hampshire.
There's New Hampshire.
But for 400 members to now only represent 1.4 million people, it's the most representative body in the world. Use it, right? That's an amazing tool the people have to really make sure these issues are talked about publicly. They have representation. The representatives are carrying their voice. No other state has that. And so anytime we're bypassing that, I always get a little, as much of a pain in the ass as a legislature can be, believe me, a huge pain in the ass. To bypass it on something like this isn't right?
Yeah.
So you always want to use it as the tool it was designed to be. Overall, because we allow that feedback system, that checks and balance to work the way the founding fathers wanted it to work, it works better than everywhere else. It really does. I mean, look, what are we, 15 minutes here, and I'm already, what was the over-under before I started picking on Massachusetts? But I'm going to start picking on Massachusetts about 15 minutes in. You go down to Massachusetts, it's a bureaucratic nightmare, especially on an issue like this. It's all politics behind closed doors. They're anti-everything, they want to put all of this stuff, and I'm not here to get into DEI and all that, but you want to change the date, a hunting date and an OHRV date, you better take it to the DEI committee and see what they have to say, and this committee and that. It's nonsense. It's crazy bureaucracy getting folks involved, the upper echelon elite of bureaucratic government involved, not the people, right? Not the voices that matter. And so even though Massachusetts, we do share a border, we unfortunately, I think, have gone in very different directions for Massachusetts. I love Massachusetts. I think it's great. I just wish they would smarten up and be a little more like the 603.
Well, there's a great irony that I highlighted on our weekly Sportsman's Voice Roundup program that comes out every Wednesday. And that great irony was that we were covering some states are now employing background checks on ammunition buys. So not just
on ammunition.
Yeah, not just going to an FFL to buy a gun and do your NICS background check, which is everywhere. But now some states, a handful of them have done this for ammo. In covering that, we had to recognize Massachusetts' abomination of which was House Bill 4885 became Chapter 135. And this was like one of the biggest sweeping anti-gun packages ever. And all that to say that's, going two opposite ways. The irony there is our country literally founded in the seat of freedom, Concord and Lexington in Massachusetts, and they've gone 180 degrees the other way.
Yeah.
That bill was so egregious, and it is law, and it was done in the dead of night, no comments. We're not listening to anybody. We're just doing this because the current administration demanded it. And the people didn't have a say, and here we are, and it's going to stop Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont sportsmen from being non-resident hunters in that state because of the new requirements to possess a firearm in that state for non-residents. It's madness.
And you saw, so Maine, when Maine passed that law, I think they did pass the law on extending the time.
72-hour.
72-hour, yeah. Right? So I don't mind telling you, I heard from some of the largest firearms retailers in Maine.
Yes, you did.
Within just a couple days saying, no, we're not. We love Maine. We love our home, but we're going to get crushed. This is our business right here. Gov, can you help us find a place right across the border? And we are. We're helping a lot of those places come right across the border here. And again, it's just, they're coming across the border to do what they've always done, right? They're not looking to break rules. They're just doing what they've always done. Smart, safe, responsible. So anyway, it's just, unfortunately, politics gets way too wound up in this stuff. And we try to keep it, I don't want to say simple here in New Hampshire, but we try to keep it about the individual, not about the government and the political extremes that are fighting. Well, let the political extremes fight all day. We'll take care of the people right in the middle here.
One more note on what you just said, and I won't put words in your mouth. I'll harken back to our coverage of that bill passage. And as soon as it came out, I said, what you just said, this is going to happen. And I think within 24 hours, Kittery Trading Post, one of the largest retailers in the state of Maine for firearms, outdoor recreation equipment, all of it, already had an article out in the major newspaper saying, we're leaving 207 and we're looking for 603.
Yep.
So,
We
and
talked
that's
to them,
nothing
they're
small.
great guys.
Yeah.
They love Maine. They know that.
Yeah, of course.
They have such passion for their home, and God bless them for doing it. But it's a major retailer up there. It's a great brand, a great location. They've never had any single problems. But when they pick up and said, boy, we're thinking of at least putting something over in the 603, we never thought we'd do this. It was like, well, yeah, we're here for you. What do you need? What do you need?
So to that end, and getting back to your position as the chair of the Governor Sportsman's Caucus, it makes all the sense just because of your very common sense way of dealing with these things and acknowledging that conservation, sporting community issues, but more so conservation, is nonpartisan. It doesn't have to be, and the fact that people turn some of these things into political footballs is madness. But we all, I think every citizen, especially in New Hampshire, we're a great example of that. We all want clean air, clean water, beautiful forests, well-maintained forests, not these unusable old growth stands that support nothing.
Just unmanaged. I mean, they become dangerous. We saw it happens in California, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you don't manage your forest. And we're an outdoor state. I mean, that's what I grew up in the mountains, hiked the Appalachian Trail.
Yes, you did.
You know, I'm a big hiker. We're big outdoorsmen, but people get, and that's not political.
Right.
At all. And, you know, there's an interesting thing going on in Vermont. Now I'm going to pick on Vermont because Vermont has a great appreciation of the outdoors. They've always been, had fairly sensible firearm laws and all that. But lately it's getting a little much, right? They're starting to really clamp down. And it's only in the past 5 or 6 years. I think the Governor Phil Scott, has done a good job trying to push back on that stuff, but he has a supermajority against him in the legislature. And I mean, they just believe that, you know, a lot of them firmly believe that we should not just ban gun sales, but, you know, do mandatory buybacks and all that sort of thing. And that's in Vermont.
Right.
What happened?
And it's all very recent.
Very, very recent. Vermont was as red as could be until the late 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Started getting a little bit blue in the 90s, and now it's as pretty much communist. We all have little apps on our, if you have an Apple phone or an Apple Watch in New Hampshire, it comes with an app. When the communists of Vermont get too close to the Connecticut River, your alarm goes off and oh, here comes Bernie Sanders. Be careful, everybody. No, but really, it's just gone in a very different way. And I think the Republican, Phil Scott's done a very good job up there trying to hold some sensibility, but he's completely overwhelmed by a supermajority of liberals that want to, and socialists, frankly, that want to just have government control everything and take the guns, and we don't need hunting, right? How dare you shoot that poor deer? It's like, come on.
And again, a great example of bringing up the governor over there in the Green Mountain State. You know, they had a similar situation that got a whole lot further along in the legislative process, an attack on their Fish and Wildlife Board, which essentially would have seated anti-sportsmen, people just being in the way of any sort of management, right? They had this preservationist philosophy and mindset, not conservation. We did the same thing here in New Hampshire. It's perennial, I think, for the last 4 sessions. It keeps coming up. Same bill sponsors bring it back. It gets ITL'd or it dies on the vine, thank God. But yeah, these constant strategic attacks, and this is very well coordinated, and they come to our smaller states, death by 1,000 cuts, but they're, you know, going at the fish and game commissions or boards, whatever they're called, and they can do real damage if they finally get that pass.
Imagine the money they have to spend in Texas to get Texas to do something like that, right? So they have to spend 1/100th of the dollars to do the same thing in New Hampshire, but they get to pick off one more state or Vermont or whatever it is, right? So they're going after these smaller states first because they can spend overwhelmingly with their money. It's cheaper to do it. And they say, oh, yeah, another state has gone this way. So now we haven't, obviously. We know we keep pushing back. And even that, I think that we've been pretty smart here about, you know, making sure even the real liberals, those types of bills just get buried pretty quickly. But the point is, to your point, there's money. There's money behind these efforts.
Huge money.
And that can be very hard to, and they're not buying off politicians per se, but they're putting out false stories. They're putting out false advocacy. They're making folks think, well, if you just do this, it's going to be fine. There's no unintended consequences and all that. Well, there always is, right? There's unintended consequences of almost any bill. Again, I think because we have such broad representation here, 400 members, and and they make $100 a year, right? Look, I might disagree with a lot of the members in the legislature, but they all do it because they're passionate
Right.
about it. They want to make a change for the better. They're not doing it for the money or the career. Definitely not the glory in the New Hampshire legislature. So you always have to go in with an empathetic ear that these people aren't bad people. They just might fundamentally disagree. But it does mean that, when you do have if you have the right advocates, strong advocates, the lobbyists or whatever it is, they can become a force. They can. Now, luckily, again, we've I think stood our ground very strong here. But when you're surrounded by states like Maine, I couldn't believe what Maine did and some of the stuff Vermont's done. And now we're Massachusetts is. I'm surrounded. And don't even get me started with Quebec, right? So you go to the Quebecois. I mean, now you're talking the real socialists up there. I don't know what Trudeau is doing. I think if you say the word gun, you get jailed.
Yeah.
In Canada nowadays. So again, it's about management, right? It's not about guns. It's about management, conservation, good land use, smart land use, recreational use. And again, you have to have that balance. And I just think we do it here pretty well.
And quite frankly, in the world, the way we manage our North American model of wildlife management is the envy of the entire planet. Africa somewhat second to us because there's some incentive-based hunting, and if not for very deep-pocketed Western hunters going down to some of those countries to hunt very well-managed species, those species wouldn't exist, right? So the fact that in the North American model, wildlife conservation, hunting specifically is included in that management as a needed part of that cycle. I mean, you think about trapping gets maligned here in the States so many times.
That's the one really with the bullseye on it.
Huge, right? Because it's a small group of people. It's an older crowd, really. Hard to, have 400 licensed trappers, and if any, and half of them are actually active to fight the machine. But it's the trappers that say, I'm going to pay at least $35 a year of my own money to go to get a permit to go out and do a great service for the state on their own time, on their own gas. The state's not having to pay that. Conversely, go to Massachusetts, and they have to have a budget for this stuff for beaver mitigation in their culverts because they outlawed trapping, and then the guy or gal wanted to pay $35 and do it on their own.
All politics, no common sense. It's really, really crazy. I think trapping probably, and that's the one that comes up a lot. I think we've done a pretty good job of just pushing back on it, even on that. But that's probably, I think a lot of the outside groups see that as the low-hanging fruit, if you will. But to your point, it's an aspect of conservation and wildlife management that comes into play. And I think you bring up a great point, but the fact that all these other states have to put sometimes millions of dollars into their budget to do themselves in a much more inefficient way, but the citizens were willing to pay a small fee to do for them.
Exactly.
And so there's no common sense there. Why? Because it's looked better and they don't have to deal with the issues, and they don't want to pick up the phone and deal with a few, that vocal minority that doesn't like it or for whatever reason. That doesn't mean we don't listen to them. I'm happy to listen to anybody, but I know the value of the different aspects and different tools you have to use to get a full spectrum of conservation and management of your wildlife ecosystem. And I think we do it pretty well. You obviously hunt turkey, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you're a great turkey hunter.
We'll get to that.
Oh, yeah, you're a great turkey hunter, but I'm the worst hunter in the world, by the way. I go out, I try. I think I talk too much. I'm just too loud. And I'm terrible with my turkey call. And I'm getting better with the turkey calls, but I think I'm just too dang loud.
You take it duck hunting. That's easy.
I got my duck calls. Oh yeah, I got those back in 2018. Those when I first became the Governor Sportsman Caucus chair.
Yeah.
Over there, and I got my duck calls hiding back there somewhere.
There's beautiful canvasback decoys there. Yeah.
Yeah, they're good. Yeah, they're beautiful decoys. I've never used them. They've just kind of sat on my window. Maybe if I actually used them, I could actually catch something. Kill something.
I want to say one more thing on the trapping side of the house, and hunting in totality is part of the management system. And another fringe benefit of those people going out there on the landscape and providing that service is the biological data collected from our deer hunters, from our turkey hunters, from our trappers. That, again, that's one more thing the agency, and we've acknowledged it here, specifically have covered it. Our agency is not in good shape financially, fiscally. It's struggling. Part of that is a lack of recruitment, retention, and reactivation. I had it. Not having enough hunters buy hunting licenses. There's some other things there that probably could be looked at to raise revenue for the state fishing game. But what they're not paying for is all this army of biologists going out to find all this information that conservation-minded hunters and anglers are able to provide back.
That's right. And again, it's part of that feedback system. We have an army out there. We have a couple 100,000 people, anglers and hunters, that's paying, and they don't pay a lot, but they are paying for the ability to go out. And people, you'd be surprised at how many people actually are like, yeah, I'll make sure you can go to the website, you can submit the data in, and it can be data on biological, it can be data on flora or fauna. I mean, on both. I mean, I think it was a series of hunters that first found, somewhat unrelated, the emerald green beetle that was killing all of our ash trees in New Hampshire. And it was the hunters that found that said, oh, wait, look at what the woodpeckers are doing, right? You can watch the woodpeckers. They go after the beetles. They end up going into these dead trees. You're like, well, what's going on? That's how we actually found that we had this infestation here. Yeah. But it was them reporting that back to Fish and Game. So, and there's a lot of examples of that out there. But anyway, so look, it's just about having balance and about utilizing the resources you have and letting people do it, not just do what they want. I don't want to be that cavalier about it, but let the individual have the opportunities that frankly, they were granted by the founding fathers a heck of a long time before you came about.
And unfortunately, and I don't think we're at half yet, but in New Hampshire, we don't have it in our state constitution, the right to hunt, fish, and traditionally hunt, which, encompasses trapping. So that does leave our community in a precarious spot when it comes to these deep pockets that we were referencing and the constant attacks in these small states. So it does take quite the effort to put that out to the people and get there. So it's not something that's done willy-nilly and just we'll just throw it on the ballot this year, have a legislator bring it up, because it is a very strategic, concerted effort that we want to do that right when the time is right to do that. But it would certainly go a long way to avoiding waste and time and constantly having these flare-ups.
No, it would be great. I mean, constitutional amendments in the state are really hard.
That's right.
They're really hard. We don't do provisions, right, because we have such a representative body. So we don't do ballot provisions in November, but we will do constitutional amendments from time to time. Every once in a while, you'll get one, but it needs an overwhelming majority of in both the legislature as well as the people of the state. And so again, you have to have a lot of money out there, and you can get battles back and forth. But look, the good news is, I think as long as we have a very representative legislature with a lot of touch points, what's out there in the public, I think we're going to be in good shape for a while.
Yeah, hopefully so. We'll keep hammering. Some other legislative victories I wanted to just cover with you before we leave here. Big one in House Bill 1186 that you signed into law. That was the Firearms Privacy Act.
Credit card.
The merchant category coding. That was huge, where you have other states like New York who are proactively trying to implement that. We proactively in the Granite State said, no way.
No, that's a big win, because as you just mentioned, other states are going after it, where they're looking for every little way to track you, what you're doing, for a variety of different reasons, especially around firearms. So again, the obvious example is you use a credit card. Well, you don't need to tell us that that you've bought a gun, because you have the right not to do that, but we have the right to look at your credit card transactions, see if you bought a gun. But no, I don't think so. And so, I think, again, we have a very active legislature here. It just takes a couple members to say, hey, look what they did in California, New York, Massachusetts. We're always looking at these states where they go aggressively the other way. And so we're not afraid to be proactive our way and say, let's lock this thing down before the discussion even happens about taking away those fundamental rights and that invasion of privacy. And at the core, privacy is really what we're about. I mean, live free or die, right? Not 4 cool words on our license plate. I mean, they are, but it really is how we live here. That's kind of the mantra. Okay, whether you're Republican or Democrat, let's remember what live free or die is all about. It has to be about the individual first, privacy. Let's respect that. It has nothing to do with being a sportsman, but I always give folks out of state the example. In our state, when you go through our electronic tolls, for example, right, it'll take a picture of your license plate. It has 3 seconds, like by law, the computer has 3 seconds to see if you've committed a violation, and then it has to actively destroy and delete all that information. So in other words, there's no record that you actually went through there, right? Unless there's a fee to be paid or something like that. But the law actually says you have 3 seconds, not 30 seconds, not a day, not clear the data bank out after 30 days. 3 seconds before you're a mile away, before you're half a mile away, we've already deleted your information. And people understand that, right? And so that's just where it is. So that's just one example of I think the extremes we will try to go to make sure that people can maintain their privacy, their rights, especially around firearms.
And I think for the good of the audience here listening, that bill, wasn't just about firearms. So the way that those merchant code category merchants are set up is that if an institution sells a firearm, any of those purchases would in that store. So if you went to LL Cody up north, if you went over to Bass Pro and Hooksett, you go in there to buy a tent, a sleeping bag, some new hiking boots, you're still getting tracked on this thing, and that's no one's damn business.
Absolutely. And again, it could be for virtually any item, right? And so it's really dangerous stuff what you're seeing in some of these other states. And you don't see the feds pushing back on it, right? Ideally, the federal government should be pushing back on these states going, you can't do that, right? But just the opposite. You have too many folks in the federal administration saying, oh, yeah, that's fine. I mean, I have my issues with Washington. I think they're all a bunch of jokers. Fire them all. I really believe that sincerely. But they've all kind of lost their way, Republican and Democrat, in D.C. I mean, I think back home, I'm obviously a staunch Republican and classic conservative. And I think for the most part, states, you're getting a little bit of separation with that red state, blue state thing, which is unfortunate. Everyone's leaving the blue states. They're coming to the red states, which is great for us. We're in good shape there. But you just don't want to see that kind of divide. In Washington, it's not as much divide as it is apathy, right? They're all about themselves. They're not doing enough to appreciate what's really going on. There's very little connection with constituents. There's very little connection with what's happening on the ground. It's all kind of big media headlines with those guys as opposed to actually kind of redesign systems and appreciate the pushes and pulls of what's working and what isn't.
Sure.
And that's what governors do. I mean, I appreciate all governors. I get along. But for those people who don't know, governors, for the most part, all get along, right? I get along with Kathy Hochul in the governor of New York. I don't agree with her on pretty much anything, but we get along. We share ideas and all that sort of thing. And I kind of look at what they're doing and all that. Pretty much I look at what they're doing and do the opposite in New York, but same with California. But for the most part, we all do get along. In D.C., it's not like that, right? It really is a divide. It hampers things down. But as a governor, we don't get vacation. We don't get time off. We have to constantly redesign and challenge ourselves to redesign the systems for better outcomes. Legislatures do funding. They agree with how much money should go to something and do they agree with a policy or not? Okay, fine. But there's no bill that designs a system for mental health, for access to a better school choice, for access to drug treatment, for understanding how the pushes and pulls of the Sportsman Caucus and conservation efforts within wildlife management actually work, right? What's going on with a conservation officer today in the North Country? What are those things that he has to deal with? What kind of equipment does he need? Who is he coming in contact with? What are the fees and penalties that and the laws that they're there to uphold? How are they working with their fellow states? Remember, especially in our North Country.
Yeah.
You go 20 miles one way or 20 miles the other, you're in Vermont or Maine.
Right.
And so we take a lot of pride in working with those other states. As well, we don't always have the same laws. We do have to work with them because people go across the border. Working with state police, right? That synergy between fish and game conservation officers to state police to local police. They can't work in silos, right? Especially in the North Country. They all have to kind of share those responsibilities. Our fish and game guys do a lot of the search and rescue.
Oh, yeah.
And God bless them for doing it. I mean, they put themselves in some very harrowing circumstances. It's one of the bigger costs that I think people don't appreciate out of fish and game. They put themselves in very dangerous situations to pull people off mountains and all that sort of thing. And we have our fair share of people that get stuck on mountains. Usually not from New Hampshire, by the way.
That's right.
They're usually from New York or Florida. The guy comes up from Nebraska and he's like, oh, Mount Washington, I think I'll try to hike it in flip-flops. Oh, boy, call fish and game. This is going to be a problem. So, because we do have some very dangerous mountains.
For sure.
Yeah. We're not the Rockies, but we're actually more dangerous than the Rockies in many ways. So, because of the weather and the exposure. So, and they're on the front lines of all that, right? So you got to work synergistically as a team. There's cost and all that, but that's all about system design again. And a governor or working directly with the local officials, with those individuals on the front lines. Okay, what's working, what isn't? Tell us what's happening here. And then relaying that to the legislature and letting them, again, having that public process. So it's a lot of work, but it's a good system that gets the feedback that you want to make sure that, again, we're just doing it better than everybody else.
Yeah, I would agree. Referencing D.C. and worth acknowledging because there's a tie in here to New Hampshire is that 27 bills that hit the president's desk last year, 2 of them were Sportsman's issues, and one was the federal electronic duck stamp that basically brought duck hunters into the 21st century here. And you signed a bill here at the end of the last session, 310, that was just updated and modernized that for New Hampshire hunters.
Smartphone.
So you get it on your smartphone.
Yeah,
exactly
that's
right.
really cool.
It was a good fix, and why not use the technology?
Yeah. Every once in a while, I called it when I first became governor back in 2017. I had a mission called the Blinking Green Cursor Mission. We had computers that still had blinking green cursors, like it was 1987 or something. And these were old, antiquated. So one thing I did is internally on the back end of things, regardless of what department you're in, okay, let's get our systems up to date and updated. And we've really worked hard to do that. And I think we've done it, pretty solidly throughout. And then on the front end, it's all about customer service, right? They're private organizations or private entities that have great access points through their websites, through their apps, super easy to use. Let's look at those. How do people use them? And replicate that type of interface, whether it's getting veterans benefits, whether it's getting Medicaid benefits, or whether it's getting a fishing license, or whether it's getting a duck hunting, whatever, a duck stamp, whatever it might be. So we've really tried to make a strong push. We still have a little work to do. You can always keep updating because technology moves really fast. We've got a great commissioner of technology here, one of the best in the country. So we're very fortunate that he's very on the front lines of what's happening in the private sector. But to your point, it's not just about state police or Medicaid or veteran services. It's about fish and game as well, right? Bring that technology right to the forefront. You got to make sure you don't leave some of these smaller departments maybe behind, and because it's about, if you have good customer service, then they'll want to access your product.
Sure.
You'll sell more licenses. It'll be more efficient. You'll lower your costs. The whole thing works better.
I will say our fishing game does a good job with our online presence, or their online presence, compared to other states. And many of them I've hunted, and they are not easy web pages to navigate and purchase licenses, and it gets very weedy quick. And I think we do a good job here comparatively.
So one thing is, I have to tell you, on social media, I had to kind of, I criticized it. I had to put a little bit of it into it. We had a thing on social media, I think it was Fish and Game, that had Saturday Scatterday, where every Saturday they would post scat, and they would be like, this is moose, scat. Yeah. I'm like, this is duck. And I'm like, guys, this is just gross. So I kind of put an end to that. I said, I don't mind something fun, but, on Saturdays, can we see something other than poop? So that was, I don't know if that was the best use of technology, but, that's the only time I kind of pulled back on the use of technology. I thought, I don't know what it was. I just didn't like seeing that every Saturday.
Some better stories to tell, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Saturday, Scatterday. No, I don't think so. Let's try again.
I think there's someone, I don't know if it's Maine or New Hampshire, but I don't want to deviate too far, but they make earrings out of moose balls.
Oh, no.
And they shellac them, and they sell them at farmers markets. I see it all over the place. Copycats for sure, but they're turds. They're scat. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they'll collect them up.
People are buying these?
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's just awful. I can't imagine. I mean, I don't. Hey, look at the moose poop. Right? That use? Wow. Okay. Well, hey, God bless it. Live for your die, man.
Capitalism at its finest.
Yeah, free market guy.
That's right.
If someone's buying, God bless them.
There's a market for everything. It's crazy.
I'm gonna need a job in a few months. Maybe I should look into it. I don't know.
You know some of the good spots, I'm sure. Wrapping up here, and I appreciate you having me into your office and your time. Tease the turkey talk a little bit, and I'd be remiss if I didn't revisit it. So you and I's first meeting, I think it was during an election cycle or getting close to it, and you went to the people. You went right to the fishing game clubs, set up some meetings for going back to exactly what you said before, is just going to the stakeholders, the people, the end users that are out there on the ground. What do you need? What are the concerns? And that was so impressive. And you and I had a couple of sidebar conversations. And then mutual friends of ours here in New Hampshire, local radio station. It's local, but it's got a far reach. WHEB, Rock 101, a show called Greg at the Morning Buzz. And every November, right before the Christmas season, they do this really awesome, it's called Lend a Helping Hand food drive that 30 years ago started off was fill up, right. So fill up a bus kind of thing, bring in the succotash or whatever the heck you got laying around, that quickly turned into this online auction that people go in and bid on different items, stuff from the rock and roll world, sports et al. And then they started building out these really unique opportunities to experience. So what got my wheels turning was one of the personalities, Laura Boyce, who contributed to this at first. She used to do this thing called Fishing with Laura, and the listeners would bid to go bass fishing with her in a local lake. And I said, well, wouldn't it be cool if we did a turkey hunt? Because at the time, as the audience knows, I worked for NWTF. And I said, we could do a turkey hunt, get all this stuff donated. So we went through most of the personalities on the show. We're going to go turkey hunt with Laura, go Scotty, Greg, the namesake. And then at that meeting, you and I said, man, it would be super cool, the governor, because I know you love that initiative there, and you always contributed to it. So maybe I can ask Governor Sununu if he'd go turkey hunting with us, and we could raise some money off this for some good.
Forgot that's how that happened.
And you jumped all over it. And what was worse for you, maybe, was that I had the governor. I said, we're going to do a Learn to Turkey Hunt 101 class at Fish and Game. So we're going to come in on a Saturday. We're going to have all the mentors, people from Fish and Game. We're going to run turkey calls. I think he thought it was like a 1 hour deal, and we were there
all day. We were there all day. No,
but he was you were great about it.
Good for me, because I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd heard about it. I didn't know what it was. So again, so I just sat there and went through the whole class with everybody else.
Super good guy about it. Didn't sit there looking at his watch and be like, man, I got to get out of here. He's like, nope. Totally immersed, went out there.
A good turkey call. I was going to get laughed out of the place, so I better pay attention.
Greg Kretschmar joined you as well, and then we brought Greg went one way on the side of the state. We went. We didn't kill a turkey that day.
Again,
but the fellow that won the auction, he did kill. Everyone that's won the auction has gone out and filled the tag on a spring turkey in New Hampshire, which is cool. Unfortunately, the personalities, I owe every single one of you a turkey at some point in your lives. So,
and we have plenty of them.
Yeah,
I see them every day. They're looking at me, giggling at me, mocking me. They don't gobble. They giggle because they know I can't hit them.
It was a great spring. There's so many brood flocks running around, at least southern New Hampshire right now, over where you live. I know there's a bunch in my neck of the woods, which is great. It ebbs and flows, and it's been a rough couple of recruitment seasons, but I think we're going to be in good shape.
For those of us who grew up in New Hampshire, I mean, growing up in the 80s, 90s, it was not like that. Not at all. I mean, you could see a turkey here and there, but I literally see them every day all over the place. And it's great. Going a little, not to get off of the turkeys too much, but the stripers this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Striper fishing this year was like a banner.
I kept hearing that.
It was unbelievable. People pulling 50+ incher stripers out 4, 5, 20 a day sometimes. I mean, I literally would see 20 a day getting pulled out. All these pogies came in real close. The whales came up, stripers came in. Everything just really worked. And again, look, it's fishing. Some days you hit, some days you miss, some days it's too warm or whatever it is. But overall, we've had some really good years. The only area of hunting where I'm most concerned going forward, we've had great bear season, right? There's a lot of bear out there.
That's so much. We introduced a second tag.
Exactly. Moose. We do have a moose lottery. They're getting taken out more and more, not by hunters, but by ticks, right? And that's continuing. I haven't seen this year's data yet. So I don't know where that's going to go in the future. Obviously, we're very proud of our moose and all that. But, we're just, my guess is not the next governor, but the next 10 to 15 years, they're going to really have to keep an eye on those numbers. It's just a natural phenomenon that's happening where they're, for those who don't know, I mean, you can have, 250,000?
It's ridiculous.
Single moose, and they literally get bled to death.
Yeah.
It's by a tick. It's like, well, that can't happen. No, it does.
It does. And it's, it's not even a sporting hunting issue. You referenced the lottery we have, and it's a far cry from what it was when I first moved back to the state in 2005 for my military service. And I think we were in the hundreds, and now we're down to a handful, right? But it's an ecotourism. So many, and you every spring you celebrate this. I see you on social media, and you're like, hey, all right, let's go. Let's start climbing rocks and come on up Massachusetts, leave your money at the border and go home.
That's right.
But so much of our economy is based on ecotourism, and the moose are a very big attraction, especially up north where they're...
And not even for hunting. I mean, you just want to go on moose tours.
Exactly right.
And all that, because they are majestic and spectacular animals. I mean, they really are. But so there's a variety of reasons people come and see them, but we have to have them here, and we're losing them left and right. So that's the one area. I mean, maybe you have other areas, but that's the one area I'd probably say that the next 10 to 15 years, people are going to really have to look at the numbers and the management opportunities.
Unfortunately, and I'm not going to get into a full thought process on this, but there's acknowledgement that Weather cycles patterns have changed. Our winters up here have been warmer and wetter, not cold and fluffy snow. I mean, I hardly went skiing last year myself. It was kind of a bummer. So with that questing tick that is very specific to that moose, you need snowpack.
Yeah.
That's why northern Maine doesn't really have an issue, because they consistently get that snowpack going up into the far reaches of the North Woods up there. But our herds are suffering. Same thing in Vermont. They that Northeast Kingdom, the last 2 seasons, they've issued 100 tags in the E1, E2 zones, which again is that border our state, in an effort to cull that herd, to knock that tick. But again, there's a couple of philosophies. You hope that Farmer's Almanac has us getting a lot of snow this year, so hopefully they're right. They were right about wet last year. So
No, I do believe in cycles.
yeah, right, exactly.
Look,
right.
I ran a ski resort, and I could tell you, if I really thought that there was less snow and we're in a long-term perpetual state of having less snow and we're all doomed and all, no. Let's just all calm down. Believe me. We had a late ski season last year. I'll give you that. Decent snow towards the end of the season, to be sure. But 2 years ago we had record cold, like 2 weeks of absolute record cold that was just devastating to people and everything. So it comes and it goes. But the point is that over time, there's no doubt that this tick migration is real and it's affecting what we do, and we just got to keep an eye on it. And again, we look at the data, right? We don't just have bureaucrats doing it, but we have everybody out there kind of participating in the data gathering.
We got a couple good moose biologists on staff here in New Hampshire, and I know they're on it. And they're just as passionate about any of us that we just want to see them on the side of Route 3 licking salt. So, Governor, before we wrap here, I wanted to acknowledge we're making some history here in New Hampshire. Our first ever female lady fish and game director is coming on board, I believe, in October, I heard.
Yeah. She's so we interviewed her. Well, I should say Fish and Game did a national search, had a lot of candidates all over the place. She comes from Washington, incredible background. I interviewed her myself when she came as the unanimous recommendation from our 11 Fish and Game Commissioner. And it was 11 or 12. No, it was 11. 11, yeah, let's make sure. And I interviewed her, and I said, wow, I mean, she gets it. She really does. Now, she's from the state of Washington. But when you look at kind of where Washington is, what she did there, what our needs are here, we didn't hire her because she's a woman. We hired her because she was clearly the best of a huge group of individuals. And I'm excited. She got a 5-0 vote confirmation out of the Executive Council, which is great. And it is great that she's the first woman. That's kind of interesting.
It's worth noting,
because there's no doubt, we talk all the time. How do we get more young women involved in hunting and angling? How do we get more young women involved in a lot of the outdoor sportsman thing? That's one of the demographics that we're losing, and we want to keep that up. Young people as a whole, right? I'm a big believer in trying to get a lot of this, whether it's orienteering, outdoorsmanship, firearm safety, get this into our high schools. I believe very strongly in that. And it's hard. We believe in local control. I can't force high schools to do it, but more and more high schools are starting to pick that back up again. I think there was a period where they didn't want to touch it, but it could be a variety of different aspects of outdoorsmanship and sportsmanship. And so more and more high schools are starting their own clubs and things like that. And I would love to get it kind of reinvigorated into the curriculum. We used to have it in the 50s and 60s, and it worked, right? It worked. It kind of took away some of the shroud of what is that, right? With education comes opportunity.
Exactly right.
So anything we can do to kind of keep enhancing that is going to be a big one. But I think she's going to be great. I think she's going to be terrific.
It's interesting to see how it's going to go. We're looking forward to seeing what she can do. Parting words. You're wrapping up your chairmanship of the Governor's Sportsman's Caucus. Anything stand out? I know you think you were down at Richard Childress's place, our chairman, a couple of years ago. Any highlights from your time?
I would just say this. One thing I learned is if there's issues that come up, a couple things. First, governors talk, right? So if there's something in your state going on that you don't, or something in another state happening, try to get the word up into the governor's office, because governors do communicate. They do share ideas. We have national meetings. So it's not, states aren't just in silos. And that's why we have a governor's caucus, a governor's commission, where we all get together and talk about these issues. And sometimes there's national things that as a group we just want to advocate for. Sometimes there's best practices within our states where we say, oh, that worked for you. Maybe that'll work for us. We'll bring that idea over here. But I know it sounds cliche, but use the politicians, use the government as it was designed to be used, to have a voice. And most of the time it can really work. And again, it's as long as you're not being an extremist for the sake of being an extremist, you're just bringing kind of some common sense ideas. there's always an opportunity, I think, to have your voice heard and bring things to the table. Most of the stuff that we've done within this organization, it's not because I sit at home and go, oh, I have a brand new idea. Chris Sununu has a good idea. No. It's because I'm out talking to you guys or talking to Sportsman, and they say, hey, Gov, have you ever thought of X? Oh, haven't. Okay, okay, who do we need to talk to? How do we make this thing happen? Sometimes it works. Sometimes the legislature doesn't want to do it. Sometimes it's a rule change. Sometimes it's a new permit or a new flexibility on a permit or a new technology to come to bear. That's not because the politicians have the ideas. It's because people have the ideas, and accessibility to government is really the key to that. So I think it's been a great run. We're just trying to I'm just trying to do the best job I possibly can and leave as big as shoes to fill as I possibly can. So we'll see what happens in the next few months. But one thing I was reminded, I would remind the next governor and the next administration that comes in here, we're standing on the shoulders of 250 years of responsible stewardship. How dare we as individuals think that all of a sudden that we're going to come along and topple all that, right? In other states, most other states have done it, unfortunately. We don't. And I just try to remind it, what are we talking about here? We're just in a moment trying to carry on, I think, a good legacy and good stewardship and smart ideas of conservationship and smart ideas of putting the individual first. I think if we, as even though you can be the governor and it can be a heady job, you get a lot of ego in this thing.
Sure.
No doubt about it. Hey, I get to be in the corner office. That's great. But let's remember that you have to walk forward with that humility to say, it ain't about me, man.
Right.
It's not about me. It's about the individuals today and understanding why New Hampshire is just a little bit different than everybody. A little bit different, a hell of a lot better.
Yeah.
As I like to say.
And I think you, especially comparatively to some of your counterparts across the country, have done far and away a better job of that and carrying that humility through your work. And I can say that with great confidence.
Well, I said as I was kneeling in the garden today, weeding and mulching on a Friday morning with my wife. Yes, it was a very humility-filled experience getting the mulch just right.
Well, plenty of time upcoming, perhaps next spring for the bulb planting and
there you go.
Everything.
I'm sure. But the honeydew list will only get bigger.
Governor Chris Sununu, thank you so much for having us and giving us your time and for your leadership for the caucus over these years. We appreciate you.
We'll see you out there hunting.
For sure.
The turkey.
I owe you a turkey.
All right.
Very good. All right. Our thanks to Governor Sununu, not only for his time, but his leadership. Always a pleasure when I get to catch up with him. And, I just so down to earth. And, we're going to have politicians, we're going to have leaders. And I think if more of them took the same approach as Governor Sununu, the common sense, look, we all got to live together, coexist, and we need to, find commonality on so many things, and specifically in our community, the conservation sporting community. I think he's got it right. I know he's got it right. Admitting that you don't know everything and surrounding yourself with experts in the area, and then going to the stakeholders and going to the people. I can attest to it. He did it for me. I was one of those people. A good example to follow for sure. And his leadership will definitely be missed. I suspect it won't be the last time we hear from the governor. Certainly excited to see what the future brings for him. If nothing else, success for sure in his private life. If he returns to the public service life, time will tell. But at any rate, we thank the governor again for his time. Now, after that recording, I do want to send condolences here. Governor Sununu's mother passed away. I wanted to acknowledge that. And certainly we're thinking of the governor and his family for that loss. And then one more sign off for the governor. The day after that, maybe it was the same day, might have been the day after that. Very remarkable man. Saved the person's life. There was a very New Hampshire event going on, a lobster eating or a lobster roll contest, and the contestant started to choke. And Governor Sununu sprang to action and administered the Heimlich maneuver and saved the gentleman's life, who went back to eating the lobster rolls right away. So, golly days, there you go. Incredible. Again, thank you to the governor for all he does. Folks, some house cleaning, housekeeping and cleaning, if you will. Our NAS Summit is available. You legislators that are planning to come, our industry friends, agency partners, we'd love to have you. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, November 17th to the 22nd. It's going to be one heck of a time. The Bash in the Bayou. Get on there now and register so you get your space and come enjoy a few days of just great talks, good opportunity for collaboration, working across state lines, working across party lines, all of it. It's going to be a great event. And also like to announce our Win Big, Win for Conservation raffle that is going on. This does not have a long shelf life, folks. It ends November 3rd of this year, 2024. If you go to congressionalsportsman.org, you will see that that banner at the top of the screen. You can go there, put your age verification in, and then you can scroll through all the prize opportunities there. You can browse the 2024 prizes. There's a truck, a Chevy vehicle voucher, got some firearms, optics, all sorts of stuff. So go on there, get your tickets. Great fundraiser going on, and some really great prizes and prize packages. Again, congressionalsportsman.org for all the details and to sign up. That's it for this week's show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Do check back in with us for next Wednesday, our Sportsman's Voice Roundup. No feature every other Thursday. We got those, so obviously you're hearing this on Thursday, so you can enjoy this one for the next 2 weeks. And if you've already listened here and you want to go back, had a great conversation with our own John Colclasure about the new Director of Forestry position that we have at CSF. And then there's a whole bunch more going on. Go back through the catalog. Check out the features. Check out some of the Sportsman's Voice roundups, those weekly newscasts. Still very relevant information. Policy is ongoing, and most of the items we're covering are going into the next session. So worthwhile brushing up on and being aware of happenings coming to your state and your state legislature in the next session. So that's it for the show. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.